So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Is the iPhone XS Max, I was going to say 11 Pro Max, worth it here late 2019? Now, I'm actually recording this video on the 11 Pro Max in the ultra wide camera view. So let me know what you think of this ultra wide perspective. If you kind of like it, maybe we'll do more. Wanted to switch it up today. We are in 4K at 30, but let's talk about the XS Max. We'll begin with the price here. A lot of people have been asking about this phone, and it's easy to see why. The XS Max is finally not a $1,000 phone, but still giving you a lot of those $1,000 phone type things, like the stainless steel body, the huge iPhone screen, the OLED, just a beautiful gold color, beautiful design here. So the XS Max is a lot cheaper now. Let's just put it that way. But a lot of people have been also asking, should I get the 11? We'll discuss that in a separate video. But yeah, so you kind of get the gist of the price. It's around that $590 to $630, around that range. I've looked at multiple third-party sellers, and this, of course, is going to be like a refurbished, used, renewed, that type of thing. If you get this new, you're probably going to find it around $800 or so if somebody still has a new sealed one. And now that we got price out of the way, that kind of is where it stands. And my opinion on this price point right now is that it's kind of a bit high, considering that you can get the OnePlus 7 series with the triple camera and 90 hertz display for around that same price point. But again, we're focused here on getting an iOS device, so that might not apply to you. So the body of this device, well, the body, if you didn't, touch the camera lens, you probably wouldn't know it's a XS Max unless you felt the glass back. The newer phone does have the frosted back, and this does have a glass, but the phone overall feels very similar to the 11 Pro Max, but it feels lighter than that newer phone. Overall, I don't think it's as nice as the 11 Pro Max, but it's still a premium looking device even now. But it's funny how easily the trend can shift. The Google Pixel 4 XL here with their square camera designs automatically make this phone right here, the iPhone XS Max, start to look a little bit older with this design. Also, you'll see a lot more cameras with the cameras in the middle kind of this year. So this design actually, even though it's not that old, is kind of looking a little bit old if you look at all the current smartphone trends. But the way it feels is still $1,000 definitely. So if you bought it at that nice price point and it has a good battery capacity remaining, I think it's a decent deal when it comes to the body right now. Now, when it comes to the display, one thing about the new iPhone is that it's a lot brighter than the iPhone XS Max here. So this one about 600 or so nits. The new one can constantly push 800 nits. So this phone is not as bright as the newer phone, but it's never been a complaint here for the XS Max. It's always been a very bright phone. So what that means is that if you get this device and you're cranking up the brightness, you're going to be able to see it just fine. You're not even going to be thinking about you want more brightness. As a matter of fact, the 11 Pro Max, I never have it at the top brightness because it's just too bright for my eyes for most of the day if I have it too bright. But it's great when you are in sunlight. This one I was still able to see most of the day just fine. And at nighttime, even this phone is too bright. So yeah, the brightness is good here. The rest of the display is OLED, and it does have 3D touch, no haptic press, so it's a little bit faster to get into your quick shortcuts here. And those display benefits are noticed as well in the colors and details. The contrast of this display is just very strong. You can see the very dark blacks here for the XS Max. So if you wanted an OLED iPhone and you never wanted to pay, $1,000 for an iPhone, this is going to be a very good option right now for you in the XS Max. It still has a phenomenal camera on this phone. It just doesn't have the wide angle, and overall, very strong display still for the XS Max, easily competitive with a lot of phones of this year. Now that brings me on to the software. Is this phone worth it at this point? We're here late 2019, and yes, it definitely is. The iPhone XS Max is still getting the latest iOS 13 software, and it's not only getting this, you can also run betas on this phone as well, and I don't expect this not to be updated for years to come. So you probably could buy this phone now, use it for 3 years, and it would still be getting updated. So this is not a bad investment at all in terms of support. It's going to be here for the XS Max for quite some time, especially considering how powerful the A12 7nm chipset is in this device. So worry not when it comes to software. This is a good investment still in terms of your phone being supported. That brings me on to performance. The A13 CPU does benchmark higher than the XS Max, but the thing is that iOS has been efficient for quite some time. Now 13 has run into some troubles on the first few editions, but it's gotten better, and it's still in a work in progress. Maybe 14 will be even smoother here for the XS Max, but it's very fast on the day-to-day. You really don't have much of an issue. The 4 gigabytes of RAM can be limiting when reopening apps. Sometimes they will pause and reload because you just don't have a ton of RAM on this phone. But at the same time, you really don't notice it that much because iOS does a good job of being very smooth and kind of hiding the fact that it pauses those applications. So very happy with the performance. It's ultra smooth for a non-90 hertz phone, have you? Now, one area that was not the most impressive on this phone was battery life. Now, don't get me wrong, it ain't bad. It's nowhere near bad. It's actually good battery life, very good, have you? I'm able to get through the day, but I was never like overly impressed with this phone. The Note 9 got me longer battery life than this device, and the 11 Pro Max is significantly better than this device on battery life. But this is not a device that's going to make you worry about getting through your day. It's just the newer phone is like over the top. Like the 11 Pro Max, you can go 2 days on that phone. This one, definitely a day though, for the XS Max. So I have no issues with recommending you this phone in terms of battery life. It's just, I'm not gonna sit up here and tell you that if you buy this phone right now, if you invest your time and your money into this thing, that you're gonna get the most phenomenal battery life of any phone. It's just not gonna happen. But if you leave it on low power mode, you don't have to worry about this phone through your entire day as long as you keep it charged up. Now let's move on to the cameras on the XS Max because they have been significantly upgraded for the 11 Pro Max, but you got your 2x zoom here, which gives you very nice quality on the telephoto. And this one did have smart HDR as well, which definitely made the photos pop a little bit more. They're a little bit more saturated than before. Of course, you do have a lot of great applications like LumaFusion. You could edit your videos with this phone. You have slow motion, time lapse. All the stuff you kind of want is here. One thing I miss from the newer phones though is that you don't have the ability to change your video settings right here in application. That's a little bit annoying, but the overall results are strong. Now, the front camera here is not quite as strong as the new one because it's a smaller megapixels, 7 megapixels versus 12 on a newer one. It doesn't do 4K at 60 on the front. So this phone right here, not the best selfie camera by comparison to the newer one, but still very good. So this is kind of like a really good camera at this point, and the 11 Pro Max is a great camera. So let's just take a look at some of the samples I took on this phone really quickly here. You can just see the level of detail you can get from this phone is still very acceptable. You know, I mean, if you just edit these photos out, you can still put out some pro level quality even on the XS Max. I mean, this phone was top of the game for its time. So it doesn't make it a bad camera just because the new one came out. So where do we stand on the audio? We do have dual speakers.
Down to 0, and then you want to charge it all the way back up, and then overnight, and then it's 100, and then you drop it again to 0. Stress on the battery, and it will.
This phone has pretty darn good audio from the top and bottom speakers. You're going to be very happy with the quality. It's not the Dolby Atmos of the new one, which is a little bit more fuller sounding at the top end, but in terms of the overall audio experience, I was never disappointed here with the XS Max. Now, one area I'm not most impressed with this phone was reception. It wasn't my favorite phone for reception. My Samsung phones got better reception. Apple not putting Qualcomm modems in here because they were kind of in a dispute at the time. The next iPhone should have Qualcomm modems. Made this phone not the best in LTE performance. I've had cellular data issues with this phone a couple of times. So this is not the top of the game when it comes to overall reception and LTE performance, stuff like that. So in conclusion, the iPhone XS Max, is it worth it late 2019? Well, if you're in the market for an iOS specific phone and you don't like that screen on the iPhone 11, you want a phone that's not $1,000, this is definitely a strong option for you. And keep in mind, a lot of people in the comments are going to say, no, there's better. And I'm not going to say that's not true, but you got to realize that if somebody's looking for an iOS Apple phone, they're looking for an Apple phone. They don't care if OnePlus 7 Pro is better. They don't always care if other Android options are better. Some do, but if a person's looking for an Apple phone and they don't want to pay top dollar, this is a phone I think you should put high on your list, especially if the iPhone 11, the iPhone 10R don't appeal to you, and the iPhone 11 Pros are just too much for you to pay for a phone. So if you guys found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click that like button for me. If you have a XS Max you're holding on, share your thoughts with the community, educate them on what you've been experiencing with this phone if you think it's worth it. It helps people out in their research into what they're going to invest their money into next for phones. So I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.